Yes. So my talk is about reverse template processing by abstract interpretation, and what it is basically about is using the standard static analysis development method, the abstract interpretation method, to a new problem. So what is a normal template processing, which is also called template evaluation? The idea is to take as an input some tree-structured data. So when I will speak about database, you have to think about JSON file or XML file. And then we have a template. So what is a template? It's a sequence of constant text with formatting directives. So this says that if in the database you have C which is false, then you print 0, otherwise you print the value of X. And then you have an output text. So this is something which is very, very common. You have that, for instance, to produce HTML documents in the web. You have also XML transformers like the XSLT language. And also you can think of the C macro processor as doing this. It takes as an input some file and it outputs some C file which is preprocessed. So very, very common. So the template language takes an input on tree database, which is a kind of JSON. So in our example, we take only, so what is the database? It's either a scalar. In our example, it's either an int or a string, or it is a record, a mapping from field to a database, or a sequence of database. So this is really, really like a JSON. So for instance, this is an example document. So my name is Lemaire, and I have another field which is papers, and the papers is a list of sequences. And we have different instructions. And these are the instructions that we do handle: constant text, replacement. So basically, path refers to somewhere in the tree. So in the tree database, we have a path which refers to some data, and we output the data. We can concatenate some instruction. We have conditions, we have loop iterations, and we can also call sub-templates. Okay, so now what is reverse template processing? So it's basically the contrary. We take the output text, we take a template, which is the same as the one I showed you before, and then we give the input database. And there is not only one database, because template evaluation in general is not in an injective function. So there are multiple inputs that can correspond to the same output. So this is the one that we had earlier, but we can also have the case where C is true and X can have arbitrary value, or X can also not be defined here. Or you can have also other fields that are not used by the template. Basically, we have an infinite number of possible inputs that will produce the same output. And so our goal is to exactly characterize all the inputs that corresponds to some output. So why do we want to do that? This is a side note of the practical motivation for this work, and it was in the context of aeronautics certification, where some people, basically what they do is generate this parameters database in a JSON file, and then they use template processing to produce some constant source code, which is used after that in an embedded system. And for certification reasons, they want to retrieve the database. So this is where reverse template processing will take place, so that we can validate the database against sub-safety requirements. So why don't we use the original database? It's because we don't want a common cause of failure. Well, this is a certification. Often it's more important to obey the letter of the rule than to the spirit of the rule, but yeah, this is how it works. But there are also a lot of other applications of reverse template processing. Basically, it allows to create a parser from a pretty printer. So some people have difficulty to write parsers, maybe some complex to the average programmer, but the template processing seems to be quite easy. And it can also solve what is called the view update problem. So in this problem, you have a database, you extract some data from the database, and then the user wants to modify this data. And then the question is how you can incorporate this modified data back into the original database. And think, for instance, of a web page that outputs some data, it's modified and then replaced in the original database. So this is a problem that has been investigated quite a lot in the past. And reverse template processing could also be a useful brick into this, to this topic. So now, why exact reverse template processing is a hard problem? First, it's a problem which is not decidable, because if you can exactly characterize a set of inputs that corresponds to an output template, then you can use that to solve, to get all the solutions to a Diophantine equation, and finding solutions of Diophantine equations is an undecidable problem. So this makes reverse template processing an undecidable problem. So the solution for this, when we have an SCDA problem, is to be sound but not complete. We give up on completeness, and so either we succeed in characterizing all the possible inputs, or we fail in doing so, and we report that we failed. Another problem is that the possible inputs are infinite. So I said that you can always add more fields in the database that are not mentioned in the template. So of course this will create an infinite number of databases, but you can also have infinite number of list elements in some case. For instance, here, I iterate on a list and I print every element in the list. So the obvious solution to correspond to the output A is to have a single element list which with the field A, but you can also add some empty elements before and after that will also belong to the list. So there are several sources of infinity. So basically what we want is we want a finite abstraction corresponding to an infinite set. So this should ring the bell that we want abstract interpretation and to have a Galois connection between a finite representation of some data and an infinite number of data. And lastly, we want precision. Precision is important, and what we will see is that we will have to incorporate a lot of specific rules to reach the required precision, and we want to do that in a principled way. And so we want a modular and semantically justified composition of different abstractions. So as I've presented this in the background of the audience, everybody should think about that abstract interpretation is a perfect fit to this quite unusual problem. But interestingly, this has not been the case in the past. If we look at related work, so this exact problem has not been investigated, but there are some very related problems, and people did not use abstract interpretation to solve it. For instance, you have some tools which do automatic conversion from pretty printers to parsers, and also that do bidirectional programming, which is techniques to handle this view update problem. And often they are limited to injective programs, which means that in the template that we use, you cannot refer to a data twice, and you have to refer sometimes to all the data, which is very, very important limitations. Basically, in the case studies that we want to handle, none of these data, none of the template would obey these restrictions. There are also solutions based on logic and constraint programming, which has a generic technique for program inversion, but they are non-terminating because they enumerate generally all the possible solutions, and we have an infinite number of them, so it cannot work here. There are also techniques for typing XML transformation using very complex abstractions like tree transducers. And I think this should be seen as an instance of abstract domains. And if you see them as abstract domains, then you can combine them with other abstractions, which can be done in the current work. So, in the end, abstract interpretation will handle non-injectivity just fine. It will allow to finitely represent an infinite set and so guarantee termination. And it will allow combination of abstractions. So it's interesting that nobody tried it before. So how will this work? The first idea is that if you see a template, the template is a kind of specific expression. And if you have an expression, you have a tree, and the evaluation of this expression is what we call an evaluation tree. And this evaluation tree will correspond to parse tree. And so we will use parsing to recover the possible evaluation tree corresponding to the template. And after that, we will filter them using abstract interpretation. For instance, I have another output text here, which is the same as before, but I added some constant text after that. Yeah, so I have this template, and I will over-approximate it using a context-free grammar. So the entry point of this grammar is the text, and then I've replaced the if instruction by a new node, and this node is either a constant text or int, which correspond to each branch of the if, and int is well, just a regular expression corresponding to what is an integer. And so, using that, we will have two parse tree. We will use ambiguous parsing. So ambiguous parsing does not report a single parse tree. It reports all the parse trees corresponding to all the possible parse trees of the program. And after that, the idea is to filter this parse tree using abstraction. So, you know, when you are doing a parser, you have these so-called semantic actions, which corresponds to, basically, they are a function which maps a parse tree to the text in the parse tree to some value. And this value here will be what I call abstract database, so abstractions of the possible database. So this is how it works. This is the first parse tree. Here, for constant text, I do not have any constraint. Here, I have a if, but I know that this if corresponds to the true branch, so I had to constrain that the condition C must be true. We propagate this. No constraint and C is true means that we have C is true. Here, the same, we don't have any constraints. Here, we have the constraint that X is equal to 3. When we combine them, just two different fields in the database. And in the end, this is a representation, as we say, a canonical representation of all the database that can output, of possible database that can output this text. Now we try with the other parse tree. For the other case, it was in the case where we output an integer. So now we have the constraint that X here must be 0. Here the condition now is that the condition is false, because it's a branch. Okay, we continue. Up to here, we have propagated this input. And here, we output X again, but this time with value 3. So when we try to unify the two constraints, we will have X equals 0, X equals 3. And so it's not possible, so we return bottom. And this means that we will discard this parse tree as a possible parse tree that can output the data. So, what is this abstract database? Basically, they really mimic the concrete database, but we put sharp everywhere. Abstract database is an abstract scalar, an abstract record, and an abstract sequence. An abstract scalar is just a scalar, and a record is a map from a field to an abstract database. So all of this is very straightforward. The concretization is quite simple. And the only operation that we need to implement is abstract interpretation, abstract intersection, which corresponds to unification of the two constraints. And what is very interesting is that for the operation that we have implemented, all the operations are forward complete. And forward completeness is not a notion which is often used, but it's useful here. And we don't have joins or widening because we manage to be such that we don't need to compute any fixed point. The only complicated operation is the handling of sequences. So why are sequences hard? So a first problem, and I will not dig too much into it, but the idea is that it makes the evaluation of parse tree, you can have an infinite number of parse tree if you do it using the standard evaluation rules. So in this example, I have an iteration on a loop, but I have some if inside, and with the else that does not output anything. So we have some sequence of elements that do not output any value, which means that the length of the list can be infinite. And if we do it naively, we will have one parse tree for each possible size of the list, and it will mean that we have an infinite number of parse tree. So the idea here is to modify the collecting semantics so that we only focus on the elements that produce output and we remove the other one. And it's interesting because it's so fun in abstract interpretation that we have to work on the concrete semantics to help the analysis. And this is once again an example where we have to do that. Second difficulty is how can we relate elements? So here I have two iterations on the same list. One where we have some condition C and we print F. One where we use some condition D to know if we need to print G. And so we have this as the output. In the first iteration, we print 4 elements. In the second, we have 2. And the problem here is that we don't know how to match the different elements in the sequence. It may be that 1 here corresponds to 12, that 3 corresponds to 27, but it may be also that 12 corresponds to an element that was not printed in the first iteration. Basically, we don't know, and so this is a big source of imprecision, is that we don't know how to relate both elements. But there are some cases where we can relate elements, and in particular, if we output a complete sequence. So now, what I do in this template is I print every element, the field F and field J of every element. So despite the fact that I do 2 iterations, then because I have outputted the complete sequence, we know that the sequence has 4 elements, and we can match by position, saying this one will correspond to 11, this 3 to 33, etc. And why we can do that is because we have outputted the complete sequence. So it may seem a bit ad hoc, but actually it's completely semantically justified, and it's very important in practice to have this kind of rule to recover the loss of precision. There are other possibilities. For instance, if we know that some fields like F are output twice in both sequences and they have a unique value, then we can use them to match the contents of the other fields. So there are other things that could be implemented. And again, this showcases one of the benefits of abstract interpretation is that it's really easy to add new domains to improve precision and to do that in a principled and compositional way. So we performed an evaluation. So the motivation of this work was an industrial contract, and we were given a collection of industrial template files and to see if we could do something about them. And because it was it was a custom language designed by industrial people, which were not programming language specialists, which means there was a lot of syntactic sugar and a lot of various constructs that basically could be regrouped into somewhere if you desugar them. So basically a lot of the work was to take this language, take a core calculus of this language, and desugar the complex language into the core calculus. And we also had some interesting extensions that are present in the paper where we can handle truly recursive calls, etc. And this is one case where widening will be useful. So you can refer to the paper for these extensions. And we implemented manually a backtracking ambiguous parser. So initially we used a parser generator. It was DeepGen, and it was very awful in performance. And whereas the manual backtracking version works very efficiently. And one of the reasons why backtracking works so well in this case is because in templates you have a lot of constant text. So often when you backtrack immediately. You don't have to analyze a lot of text before realizing that you need to backtrack. So actually it's almost linear. And we can see that for files that are not completely trivial, we analyze, we cannot even measure the time needed to perform the analysis. And in all the cases that were given to us, we were able to analyze them fully precisely, meaning that it corresponds to the fact that in the end, we have the value of all the paths in the database that were mentioned in the template. And of course, for the other one, we don't know. And we have some theorems that relates forward completeness to this notion of precision. So in the end, it means that it was possible to recover the database in each case, and we didn't even need to modify the templates. We were prepared to do that. We are in a favorable case where basically we can ask to the user to modify the template in order to help the analysis. Often you have some analysis where you can do that, and it's often much harder than when the code is made to be analyzable. But in practice, we didn't need it. So for instance, it will be possible to add some custom code to transform incomplete sequence into complete sequence, things like that, if the solution arises in the future, but if the problem arises in the future, but it was not needed. So, to conclude, what we really did was just applying the standard abstract interpretation method to solve a new problem. So what is this method? It's just formalize a concrete and a collecting semantics in a way that will suit your analysis. In this case, the collecting semantics is a reverse evaluation, and the fact that we handle a set comes from the fact that the analysis is not, the evaluation is not injective. Then we have adapted the semantics to the need. Here we needed to have a finite number of evaluation trees to handle the termination, and also the way that we handle sequence make it so that we avoid the need of a fixed point computation, which could have lead to a loss of precision. Then we need to design the abstraction and its relation to the collecting semantics, and the analysis follows automatically. So here we designed abstract domains for precise constraint propagation, and the only operation that we need was the intersection. So actually, we also use the power set completion domain to handle the different parse tree inside the analyzer. And we didn't need a join or wedding. And finally, we use the concept of abstract interpretation to understand and to improve the analysis. And notably, we use the concept of exactness or forward completeness or gamma completeness to understand where we lose precision in the analysis. And in the end, with a combination of suite-up domain and with some template writing guidelines, in the case where we are not fully precise, we were able to completely solve the problem. So yeah, in the end, abstract interpretation could address all the limitations of existing methods, such as non-termination, existing injective program only, and absence of composition of abstraction. So I think this really showcases the benefits of using abstract interpretation. Thank you.
Right, thanks for the talk. Do we have any questions? I'll start us off then. I'm interested in the use case of generating parsers out of pretty printers. Do you have an intuition of how that would compare to like traditionally written parsers, both performance-wise, or is there a class of languages where you wouldn't sort of say top or where you wouldn't say bottom in using your method?
I think in our case it worked quite well because, as I said, when you have templates, you have a lot of constant fixed text, so backtracking works well. But I think we could have used some better parsing algorithms, and nowadays you have the GLL parsing algorithm, which works quite well. So I could have been using that instead. Yeah, basically we convert the pretty printer into an ambiguous parser, and then we remove the spurious cases. And so it depends on the performance of the ambiguous parser. But now I know that GLL, for instance, works well. So in theory, it should work well.
Oh, sorry, then I may have misunderstood the use case, but I thought you could also take this technique and then for a language for which somebody only wrote a pretty printer, you perform your analysis, and then that essentially produces an AST of the thing that was previously just pretty printed, right?
I'm not sure I understood fully the question.
Maybe we'll take it offline instead.
Okay.
Let's see if there's any questions here. If not, I have another one. Do you think an SMT solver would be helpful for the sequence matching problem like that, where if the SMT solver said unsat, you could automatically see that there is no way to match up the elements, and if it gives you a model, you could try to use that?
Yeah, so we did it using abstract interpretation, and so the complexity of the analysis is very, very efficient. Somehow, I think we could have instead computed a formula over sequences and using SMT solvers to solve this sequence. Problem is that I'm not sure how decidable are these SMT theories over sequences. And also probably the time will have been less deterministic. but probably this could be tested. And in other cases, because we use abstract interpretation, we could integrate this technique with this one and use it whenever it is necessary.
Yeah, it could be one of these, could be just another domain you sort of intersect with when you run into the sequence case.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
reasonable. All right, any other questions? Let me check online as well. No questions online, so in that case, let's thank the speaker again.
Thank you.